So this is the first crack I'm going to backfill and get this filled in with compound. So first thing I need to do is get it all brushed clean, and I did that with a broom and a leaf blower. And I have to apply concrete bonding adhesive. So I paint that on all those surfaces and make sure that it's nice and damp and wet. And I mix up my concrete repair mix and I apply it with a trowel. And I just bridge that gap, similar to how I did over on this side over here, and get that all squared away, and then I'll move on to the next one. So first I gotta shake this stuff up, get it fully mixed. I'm gonna pour a portion of this into this little tray here. Kind of looks like milk. More is better, because what I want to do is get the concrete damp and wet, so that it really pulls in the sponding agent in the mortar. So you just slather it on. You don't get any points for being neat with this stuff. So just get it all in the area you're going to work on. And I like to do a little more than I need to, because more better, more better. So there we go. So I'm going to let that soak in for a little while, and while that's kind of getting in there, I'm going to get my mortar mix ready to go, and I'll give this another shot right before I start. You're supposed to use this right away, but I want to give this a chance to kind of get damp, because the patches always work better when there's a lot of dampness. Helps pull in the connection between the two. And I ground that so that the patching material will be keyed in, so it can't come out. So that's another important aspect. So as it dries, see how on the edges it gets kind of clear. So that's how it works. Alright, so this is all set. I'm going to pour the extra back into the bottle, and I'm going to mix up my sand. So I got a little bit extra here. And this is actually a fortifier also for when you do the concrete repair. So it's okay if some of that stays in the bucket like that. Doesn't have to be any exact amount. And I pour in some water and I mix this up. And if it feels like it's a little bit too thick or too thin, I adjust the mixture accordingly. So this is just a plastic container from Chinese leftovers. These work pretty good, and I got an old metal spoon. I tried using plastic, but they just break. So key is to get this mixed up, and it's surprising how much water this mix will suck in. You don't want it too wet, you don't want it too dry. See, right now it's a little bit too dry, so I'm just gonna give it I have a spritzer bottle just for adding small amounts of water, because it doesn't take much at this point to bring it up to the consistency that I want it. See how it's starting to get creamy? And then make sure you get all the dry material in there, so you don't have any wet or dry spots. So that looks pretty good. That's about the right consistency, kind of like a peanut butter consistency. So I'm going to just make sure this is good and wet with the bonding agent. Alright, so that's all set. Now what I'm going to do, I got a couple different kinds of troughs here. So what you want to do is really work it in to the bottom of the crack. You can kind of like force it in with the tip. Want to really get aggressive so it's really in there well. And just keep putting in more and more. This isn't a very difficult process at all, but you want to consolidate it. Sometimes you can just pat it like that. You'll see some of the water come to the top. because there is some aggregate in this. So there we go. So see how I'm doing this? I'm getting all the air bubbles out. And you see that it kind of gets smoother looking. Sometimes I gotta just use the spoon here to get it out of the corner of that container. So this will firm up fairly quick. So I would say I have probably 10-15 minutes of working time before this really starts to kick. So sometimes if you got a big gap to fill and it sags, you want to let it firm up a little bit, then you can work it a little bit more. And I got to feather it into this other area that's been patched. So you want to kind of feather it in and over. So I need a little bit more in there. And it doesn't matter if you make a mess or you got too much, because you can always trowel it off or grind it down once it hardens if it's got any spots that are just too high for your liking. So there we go. So that's looking good on that side. I need a little more in this area. I'll just plop it in there. So this whole area is going to get topped with another layer of cement to level off the entire floor. So this is only serving to fill the crack so we don't have any of the top coat leak in there and create a divot. So this doesn't have to be exactly perfect, it just has to fill the crack. And when we go to do the final coat, we'll kind of grind this edge nice and flat, put a form up here, you know, up a couple of inches, so that when we screed it, we have a screeding surface to run our screed so we can get everything flat. So this looks about to be the right amount. I'm just gonna finagle this a little bit more. It is starting to firm up. There we go. And before we top coat this, we're going to address these posts, which are kind of rotten at the bottom. We're going to replace all these posts, or at least cut out the bottoms and just patch in a new piece. There we go. Now I got to kind of feather it into this other patch here. There we go. There's a little bit of aggregate. It's going to make it kind of hard to get some of what I call the milk off the top. We'll kind of get it incorporated into this other patch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you try to be nice, do the best you can. There we go. So there's a nice little transition. Once this is dry, I can grind it if I get any spots I don't like that are high. So it's starting to hold pretty good. All right. That's about it. Another little trick I learned. You can take a little water. Just give it a little squirt in the areas where it's not feathering nicely. You can just use a paintbrush, kind of get that final blend the way you want it. There we go. That looks pretty good. Because there is some aggregate, it doesn't cooperate with the trowel. It kind of rolls around in there and gives you a rough edge. So. See, this gives you a really nice feather. There we go. I like how that looks. Plus it gives it a little texture, so when you go to put the top coat, there's something to bite into. Anything on the end here, just want to get that consolidated. Need a little bit more. Right in that corner. Perfect. Alright. So that's as hard as it is to patch crack. Not hard at all. You just use a cheap brush you can throw away. You don't need anything expensive. Matter of fact, you need to have a meal of Chinese food before you start, so you have a container. There we go. That looks really nice. I just need a little squirt on this side just to fix that up. There we go. So this is pretty much how I'm going to do all of these. There we go. I like the way that's coming out. And the beautiful thing about a patch is if you have a spot you don't like, once it dries, you just grind it out and fill it in again. So here we go. So I'm just going to do a last little pass here. There we go. A little piece of rock there, a little piece of rock there. There we go. So that's it. That's all I'm going to do there. Let me give you the aerial view here. Let me swing it around. You can see there's a little edge there I don't like. See that little high spot? Just gonna, there we go. That looks a little better. So here's a look at that second smaller crack. So I incorporated it all the way around that corner, flared it into the original patch that goes off in that direction. So we're good to go here. So it's only been about a half an hour, so this is starting to dry. You can see the edges are starting to turn kind of a whitish color. So I'd say within an hour, that's going to be safe to walk on. This one over here, you see it's starting to dry on that right hand side. So these two easy ones are done. So before I fill that crack, what I'm going to do is on this surface directly in front of me, on this corner, and on that corner over there, this edge all the way across, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a series of holes through the slab and into the footing down there. And then I'm going to insert some rebar. I'm going to have to cut these into shorter pieces. Insert the rebar and then backfill it with this anchoring adhesive. This is a 2-part epoxy, and as it goes through this nozzle, you see the little zigzags. It mixes the 2 parts together and it comes out of this spout. And what you do is you apply it in the holes and on the rebar. What I do is I'll slide it in, so I'm going to peg this corner to the footing on this edge and the edge over there, and let that dry overnight. And then once that's done, then I can start working on this big crack here, because what I want to do is immobilize the slab so as this dries it doesn't like push apart or contract. I don't want it to move at all. So I got to do the edges first, get those bonded in, let them dry overnight,